Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today, it's a really special day for me because I bought a collection of what is pretty much my favorite model that Gibson has ever made, as far as, like the 70s and 80s, because there's cool guitars that were made all the time. It's hard to pick an absolute favorite. But for something that really stands out above the rest, it's always been the Spotlight Special for me. And when I first started collecting guitars in my late teenage years, I thought other models were cool, but when I finally found these things in that one Les Paul book, this model literally became the only thing I cared about. I mean, I would classify my old collection of Spotlight Specials as an addiction. I was not mentally well with how much I would sacrifice to get those guitars. Like, when most people say it's a guitar addiction, they don't mean it's like an addiction. But I'll dive a little bit more into that in a minute. But on Reverb one night, I just happened to see one of the most beautiful Spotlight Specials get listed. So I was reading through the description, making sure there's nothing nefarious about it or anything, had stock brakes, replaced parts, whatnot. And it said, hey, I'm selling 5 more of these if anybody's interested in the whole collection. And I said, yep, that's mine. So long story short, I bought them. I'll tell you the rest of the story as we unbox the others, but let's go ahead and see the very first of my new Spotlight collection that I had purchased here. Ah man, it's one of the nicer ones out of this whole set. So this is a Spotlight Special. I mean, you can check out my full reviews and demos on these instruments if you're interested in learning a little bit more about them. Oh man, that one's nice. I plan on doing an updated review and demo because there's a few very special ones within this collection that are kind of sentimental to me. But the story goes, 1983, they made about 211 of these. Now, there is a little bit of controversy on the true number because you can also find some in 84, like this one, number 9. This is the only 84 that I've personally ever owned. Then I have seen one from 1985 before, but I think that was more like, hey, we're replacing this guitar under warranty for somebody or something. But this is the first one. Beautiful antique natural, the more rare and desirable finish because it gets the double colored binding. So brown binding with cream binding, and you get that double mixture here on the fretboard. And the top on this one, yes, that is a very active flame top. That is beautiful. And it's supposed to be all original. And hey, this one even has one of those very shortly lived Gibson USA versions of the lift-in case. You don't see these too often, but they are original. However, I would argue this was probably about 5 years after this guitar. You normally find these in the late 80s, but ooh, looks like things fell out of my case pocket. That could have been much worse than it was. So somebody has modern strap buttons on here for some reason. Okay. Oh my goodness. This was a ex-Mike Slabowski guitar. Mike Slabowski is what I imagine everybody else thinks of me like. Not exactly, like he's a rich doctor, so he can afford all these cool guitars. But Slabowski, I mean, he's probably the reason why I like these Spotlights as much as I do, and the reason I got into guitar collecting, because he had those few basic short articles about really rare Norland era guitars, and that ramped up my drive for old Gibsons. So knowing that this is an ex-Slabowski, it's kind of cool. Spotlight Specials for me are kind of like bursts for other rich guitar collectors. I like to know the story behind the guitar. I like each individual model, and my old goal in life was simply to own every single one that was ever made and start a museum. Now that just kind of seemed like a crazy idea back then, but it's starting to seem more like a reality. I'm telling you guys, things like my guitar museum and things like that, and I truly think it will happen one day. So that's why I'm starting to hold back really special examples. Now, will I have a dedicated museum just to Spotlight Specials? No, probably not. But will I have a dedicated room? Who knows? But anyways, the story behind this collection is it was located in Colorado. I believe it was a father-daughter. They just started to collect these because they really liked the model. I'm sure they were influenced by Slabowski and those books as well. However, I'm not sure if the father has passed on or if they just got out of the whole collecting of this. I mean, they had 6 of them. That's a pretty good amount. But the child of the father decided to sell these things off. Like I think it was on this box over here. I forgot to mention it. It reads, "Thank you." Thank you endlessly for your patience through this transaction. It was a tough decision for them to sell these ones, but they know that it's going exactly where they should be. Signed, Keaton. And at least 2 of these guitars, I am very thankful to get back. But again, I'm just pushing that story a little bit further until we find which one it is. And I don't think it'll be this one. This should be something else. Oh no, there she is. Okay, so my initial Spotlight collection. The reason why I sold it is A, I felt like I was getting way too addicted, and B, I needed to buy a house. Because, I was ready to move out of my mom's house, start my own life. And, oh man, that really stinks. Is it? Yeah, it is. Okay. So this was the very first Spotlight I have ever owned. I took a fantastic trip to purchase this guitar. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when I do the full review and demo of this one that I think we should treat ourselves to since I have it back. But this is the one that started it all for me, and unfortunately, when I sold it to that collector guy, he bought my entire collection off of eBay, and then he parted it out. So I really wanted number 21 from Fretted Americana, but he ended up trading this one in 188 to Fretted Americana for the Antique Natural that I wanted for my 21st birthday because it was number 21. So I always hated seeing my old guitars at David Brass's shop because it's like, that's just a double whammy. Not only did my collection get split up, but unfortunately, he took the other one that I wanted. But I'm kind of sad because this guitar was like almost mint condition. Like, it wasn't perfect. It had definitely been played, but it did not have any of these big dings and gouges. So unfortunately, between point A and point B, somebody really really ding this guy up. Like, I remember that was there. And, maybe that was there. Maybe it's just I'm looking back with rose-colored glasses and I don't remember all these nicks and dings, but I really don't remember it on the top. But one thing I do know about this guitar is it is amazing in person. I mean, look at this thing. But it takes photos like garbage. This top does not like being photographed. Now, you can get that sweet spot angle like right here, but generally it just looks pretty plain until, you get it at one of those key angles. But it's a beautiful guitar. I'm not going to sell this one again. I mean, I have personal history with it. It's number 22. I'm just glad it didn't get broken in shipping. This is not the case I sent it out in, but I think they kind of played musical chairs for a little bit. Oh, and that's the other thing I'm really sad. The guy that bought my collection, I used to have journals in with these guitars that documented my entire tale because I thought, hey, in the future, I might like to read back on that. But the guy took them out of the case. He said he was going to send them back to me, and he never did. And then, unfortunately, he died. But he was the president of the company Non-Box. And I tried to get a hold of his son to see if I could buy back my other ones, because I know he has my old Super Crazy Quilt top one, and he has number 2. That's one that I kind of regretted selling as well. But if anybody's in Wisconsin, it's a certain museum that has like a Les Paul exhibit. I'd be curious if my old ones are actually on display somewhere in there, or if anybody happens to have access to that family. I would love the opportunity to be able to buy those back. I know I was shocked when I was just looking it up casually one day to see if I could contact him, because I had sent him an email, never heard back from him, and then I saw that news article. I was like, whoa, gone. It kind of shook me because that guy was not that old, but he would have those guitars on display at those places. So I'm hoping one day I can get my original collection back. Pretty much 36 is going to be the hardest one to get because I sent it off to Hong Kong. And fun story behind that, a guy actually purchased it simply because his wife was giving birth to his child and he wanted to give her a really cool present. And 36 was mint condition. But right here, ladies and gentlemen, is my least favorite Spotlight Special I've ever owned. This is the other one. There were only 2 of my original ones within this collection, and it was the 2 that went to David Brass at Fretted Americana. Now, Fretted Americana, if you're not familiar, that was the old, Phil X show. So it's kind of cool that, in a roundabout way, I did get one of those guitars at the same time. But I initially bought this off of a guitar forum, I think like for $4,000 the first time. I mean, I'm not sure what all these dents and dings are. Maybe they actually gigged these things. Is that what it was? But, you know, in comparison to my other Spotlights that I'd owned at the time, I mean, despite this having a nicely figured back, like you can see what I'm talking about here, it was way heavier than the other ones. It's not as heavy as I remember, but it wasn't as good as the other ones. So this was simply a collection piece. I honestly didn't care if I got this one back. I don't like the antique sunbursts that look like this. I'm not as big of a fan of them just because, you know, it's a darker color. I like the more honey burst colored ones. And unfortunately, yeah, I would say this is definitely in worse condition than it left me. So that's kind of a buzzkill, unfortunately. I was hoping these would be about the same, but the family that must have bought these from Fender Americana, they must have gigged out with them, and that's kind of cool. It adds to some of the story. I was trying to get as much information from them that I could, but if you're wondering why it says, you know, sorry for so long, it would take her like a week each time just to send one email. She had other stuff going on, and most people would probably be like, red flag, but that's probably the only way this collection actually sat on the market for as long as it did. So, kind of thankful for that in a roundabout way. I was willing to take a risk to get some Spotlights back in. So, these other three should be brand new to me. There is one that I'm kind of excited to see because it's my first Goofy top. But will it be this one? I'm not sure, but this is the like Gibson style lift-in case that you would see at these times, as compared to that other one I was just showing you. The case on this one, not in the best of shape. I suppose I can glue it if I want to. But let's go ahead and open this up to see one that I have not seen before. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is the one that was actually publicly listed on Reverb. I think she had it for $7,000. I was tempted just to buy it like that because it's like, dang, if somebody else buys this guitar, I will be sad. Like, it's got good movement, heavily quilted figuring. This is one of the nicer ASB Spotlights that I've seen. Now, it's just got that really great tight quilting. It's got some good movement. It photographs well at pretty much every angle. That's not always a good thing, though. It's like sometimes my original 22 might look better than this one, but the condition is definitely better on this. I was kind of turned off by the chipping on the headstock around the tuner posts. That's something I generally really dislike, but thankfully this example, it's fairly minor. It's just in the clear coat. No breaks, cracks, or repairs on this, but this is number 15. I don't think I've ever seen this one. It's got a few nicks and dings. I mean, it's in the condition that I remember my 22 being in. But that is just a beautiful example. This one's all original. Some of these other ones have had replaced parts, but I love the spotlight knobs. Pretty much the only downside to this one is, you know, the gold's kind of tarnished right there, but not that big of a deal. So I think this is another one I'm going to hold on to because now I'm at the point, do I get addicted again and start buying them all up, or do I just keep the really nice all original ones, or the ones that have the unique, interesting tops? I mean, thankfully, I have a YouTube channel that can support that addiction if I wanted to be the crazy spotlight guy again. But if I tell you guys that's what I'm doing, then the prices are gonna go up. So no, spotlights suck. Nobody should buy these things. They're terrible, garbage guitars. You'd be lucky to get $1,000 for one. On the other extreme, I used to track all the spotlights that ever showed up, and there were certain guys who had owned them, like from brand new, and they said, I will never sell you this guitar, but if you ever start that museum, I will gladly donate it to you. So like, there's some motivation there to start that museum just to get donated spotlights. But man, I'm having a big snow pile over here. So one of these things was actually in pretty bad condition. I probably wouldn't have normally bought it. But as with most things in life, if you buy things in bulk, you get a better deal. And hey, I'm never gonna turn down a spotlight, even if I don't want to keep it. It's easy enough to find a new owner for it. But I would hate to be the evil villain in somebody else's story that parts out the collection. So it's like a role reversal 8 years later on. I'm the guy buying the collection. But in here... oh yes. So, this is the one I was talking about last time. These are the two-face tops. I like these because they're just so darn goofy. And I fell in love with Mike Slabowski's one of these because one side is ridiculously quilted. Kind of reminds me of my old, I think it was number 83, something like that. But then the other side is barely even figured. I love these. They're just goofy. It's like, if I was going to choose which side should be heavily figured, it should probably be this one, because that's what the audience would see, because your hand kind of covers it up and whatnot. But this is not the one from the Slabowski collection. That one's actually on Reverb, and it's sat for like $7,500. I've tried to buy it before, but we could just never, meet on price. But this thing, I like it. It's got a really cool vibe to it. I love the ringage on the neck. I don't think I've ever seen that on a Gibson neck. That's cool. And obviously, at least 3 different sets of tuners. This is a mark to factory second. I didn't know about that, but I don't really care. But hey, it's number 42. This is the guitar that is the answer to everything. And it's got beautiful finish checking. Like, that is just gorgeous natural checking on this thing. I'm loving that. And I'm curious if this is actually one of the mahogany center stripe ones. Kind of early for that, so it's probably still walnut. Now, unfortunately, somebody swapped out our knobs, but these are vintage in their own right. And the frets, surprisingly in good shape for one of these things. Looks like a swapped out bridge and whatnot, but I don't think I'll care about that too much. That's kind of cool to see in person. But my friends, we have one last one, and I believe it was her favorite one. So that worked out pretty nicely here. So let's hop over here and take a look. I was really hoping none of these would get broken, because there's nothing worse than a Spotlight Special that's broken. When I first started buying these, like the antique sunbursts, they'd be like 35 to maybe 45. The natural ones, people would advertise for like 7.5. Like the fretted Americana one, you'll see it in the background of like all their old videos. It sat for 7 years. Nobody wanted it for $7,000. So you used to get them for 5 or 6, and now you're lucky to even touch one with a headstock repair for 4.5, let alone find one. At the time of recording, all I can remember that's currently on the market is the Slabowski one. And then I believe it's 84001. I'm still salty about that one because it was going to get sold to me, but somebody swooped in that just happened to be in Canada, and then they're trying to get 10 grand for it. I think that seller was going to sell it to me for like 5.5. That was the first 84 I'd ever seen. I was all freaked out about it, but now I've seen enough 84s to know that there's a good amount out there. All right, let's see. What is the one that she almost said I can't sell? Oh, yes. That's nice. So it's got a very wide quilt-esque flame to it. All right. With that natural headstock, now you're starting to see some of the differences between ASB and ANT, Antique Naturals. So this just has a very natural blonde beauty presence. Like, to be honest, only 2 of these were in the condition that I was hoping they would pretty much all be in, but spotlights are spotlights to me. I just like to know the individual stories of each, and unfortunately, I mean, they couldn't tell me too much besides, they kind of picked a couple of these up, and then the other ones they just bought online, so there wasn't much of a tale. But this one is 17 from 1983. Ooh, nice. A little bit of flamed figuring within that mahogany neck. You can see it kind of running up and down here, and then a little bit of like candy cane striping. It is a 3-piece mahogany neck. Sometimes you can find 3 pieces, other times you find 1 piece. I mean, it just really depends. The whole backstory behind these is a lot of guys go, oh yeah, they're old 50s tops that were cut too short, so they put some walnut. Now, according to Randy Leonard, a guy who was participating in building some of these things, these were left over from the Heritage 80 Elite series. They were just too short to make a full top, so they slapped some walnut in here that they were trying to get rid of. Sometimes you'd also find mahogany in the later runs. And it birthed this. Beautiful guitars that are highly collectible today. Some guys don't like that faux neck through vibe, but I think that's what makes them special. So, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed getting to take a sneak peek at a few of these. Obviously, I'm going to keep the really nice ones that I enjoy. The other ones, I suppose I could be convinced to part with them at the right price. However, I think I'm pretty well locked in. I think I paid a little bit more than I would have for some of these simply because I could buy a collection. I was getting my original ones back. But man, we need to get a beauty shot here. It's kind of bittersweet having a collection of Spotlights again because it's not my collection, so I don't have quite as much of a physical attachment to most of these. Like, I like to buy these from the original owners when I can get the stories and preserve those. And pretty much the only one I can do that is my original 22. But as I said, I'll tell you that story again another day. But until then, it's nice to have these to scratch the itch, so to say. Yeah, this one. That's gotta be my favorite one of this entire set. Like, that guy, great, because it's slightly sentimental. This one's a bit quirky, so I like it. That's a beautiful natural one, but that's just stunning. This one's pretty nice, too, if you like the flame tops. And ye old faithful. As far as truss rods go, 4 of them are good, 2 of them got issues. So surprise, surprise, the one that's been heavily gigged, you know, somebody's been cranking away on that truss rod. It's not the worst one I've ever seen, but definitely getting towards limited adjustability. So that might be a good candidate for the truss rod reset that Stu Mac was going to help me with. And then surprisingly enough, mint condition beauty here has a truss rod that has some threads sticking out. However, to me, it looks like it left the factory like that because there's still lacquer even over top of it, and sometimes that happens. So it might just be that that rod's a little bit longer, but technically, you know, as that sticks out further, you're not going to be able to get your tool in there to adjust it, so it should potentially be reset. So that's a big bummer on this one. But at the end of the day, these are more so collection pieces for me, and they still play fine as is, so I'm not as worried about it as I would be on others. Alright, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.